I never thought I would find myself telling this story, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. My name is Jake, and I'm a pretty average guy. 32, work a mundane office job, and have been married to my wife Emily for nearly 7 years. We met in college, fell in love, got married, and settled into a comfortable routine. I thought we had a solid marriage until everything came crashing down. Lately, though, things didn't feel right. I noticed subtle changes in Emily's behavior. She was spending more time on her phone, often with that same annoying smile that made my stomach churn. When I asked her about it, she'd brush it off, saying it was just work or some random TikTok she was watching. Honestly, I chalked it up to her typical quirks. I mean, she was always obsessed with social media, constantly scrolling through the feeds of influencers and famous YouTubers. But then again, who isn't these days? One evening, I came home from work a bit earlier than usual. I opened the door to our apartment and was hit by the distinctive scent of her new floral perfume. I figured she had probably treated herself after a long week, but then I noticed something strange. Her phone was left unattended on the kitchen counter. Normally, Emily wouldn't leave her phone out like that. I picked it up, half expecting to put it back where it belonged, but curiosity got the best of me. I unlocked the screen, a simple swipe pattern, and was greeted with a string of messages. My heart sank. The sender was a name I didn't recognize, someone claiming to be a fan of her content. They were exchanging flirty messages, complete with emojis and inside jokes that only they seemed to understand. The final straw was when I saw a photo of her, provocatively posing in a crop top, sent in response to a request for more exclusive content. I felt a rush of heat rise up my neck, followed by a cold sweat. I had stumbled upon the undeniable truth. Emily was cheating on me. The world around me grew dim, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I don't even remember how long I stood there frozen, holding her phone. It felt like time had stopped. I never thought my life would be a scene right out of a bad soap opera. When she got home, I confronted her. The moment she walked through the door, I could see the surprise on her face shift to concern as I held out her phone like it was a snake ready to bite. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaky but firm. Emily's face paled, but she quickly regained her composure. "What are you talking about, Jake? You're being ridiculous." She tried to play it cool, but the panic in her voice was evident. As I read out the messages, she resorted to her trademark behavior, shifting blame and tossing out excuses like confetti. "It's not what you think. He's just a friend. I was just playing around." My anger boiled over. I couldn't believe the audacity she had to minimize it all. "Playing around? This isn't just some harmless game, Emily. You've been honest with me about everything, right?" I felt betrayed and angry. She was lying right to my face. It was infuriating. The confrontation turned into a massive argument. She tried to twist the narrative, claiming she was unhappy and needed excitement outside of our marriage. I felt the walls closing in on me. It was like she was trying to paint me as the villain in a story that was purely of her making. I could barely process the emotions swirling inside my chest: betrayal, anger, sadness. I spent the night pacing back and forth, replaying our entire relationship in my mind. How could I have been so blind? It was a roller coaster of emotions, and I was stuck in the loop. I was devastated but had to think clearly. I was at a crossroads, and I needed to decide what my next move would be. Would I try to salvage this sinking ship or embrace the chaos she had unleashed into our lives? Little did I know, this was only the beginning. After the confrontation, I was left with a whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the kind of blow that leaves you breathless and reeling. She claimed she was unhappy, but wasn't that what relationships were meant to navigate together? I had given her everything: my time, my love, my trust, and here she was throwing it back in my face, all for some fleeting thrill with a YouTuber who was probably just as fake as the persona he portrayed online. The days that followed were agonizing. Emily tried to make amends, shedding tears and uttering empty apologies. But the damage was done. I could see right through her. She would slip into her bitchy mode whenever I brought up the subject again, insisting I was being unreasonable and dramatic. I could feel the resentment building within me like a volcano ready to erupt. Each lie she told felt like a dagger to my heart, twisting deeper with every word. I had to formulate a plan. I couldn't just let this go. I wasn't the type to wallow indefinitely. I had to channel my anger and humiliation into something productive. Hence, the idea struck me. If she wanted to play the game of social media and followers, then I would play too. Only this time I would play to win. I had always been a quiet observer of the online world. I rarely posted anything myself, content to sit back and enjoy the antics of influencers from a distance. But now I saw an opportunity, a way to reclaim my power. I started brainstorming ideas for a new channel, one that would focus on genuine interactions, authenticity, and a touch of humor. If Emily could build a following off superficial connections, I could do the same but with real substance. I began recording videos in my spare time, sharing anecdotes of my life, tackling emotional issues, and even making light of the ridiculousness of social media culture. It was liberating. I found my voice, and with that voice came followers, first a trickle, then a steady stream. I spent hours learning the ins and outs of video editing and social media algorithms, working hard to build a platform that could stand on its own. As my channel grew, so did my confidence. It was thrilling to see the numbers rise, to read comments from strangers appreciating my authenticity. I had tapped into something genuine that resonated with people. I felt a sense of validation I hadn't experienced in years. The more I poured myself into my project, the less I thought about Emily's betrayal. I was no longer the victim, I was becoming my own person. Emily seemed to notice the shift in me. She would watch me edit videos, her expression a mix of admiration and jealousy. "Wow, you're getting a lot of views," she'd say, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Maybe you should go on a trip with one of your new fans." The bitterness in her voice cut deep, but I simply smiled. I had something she didn't, determination. As my follower count climbed past hers, I felt a rush of satisfaction. It was no longer just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my identity. I was no longer the guy who was cheated on. I was Jake, the creator. I put out content that made people laugh, cry, and think. Every video felt like a step toward healing, an act of defiance against the pain that Emily had caused. But just as I started to feel on top of the world, Emily played her trump card. One night she confronted me again, this time with a different approach. "Look, Jake, I know I messed up, but you're acting like you're living your best life. I want to work on our marriage," she pleaded, her tone softer, almost desperate. The guilt washed over me momentarily. Was I being too harsh? Could we salvage our relationship? I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe her, too. Give us another chance. The other part, the part that had been hurt so deeply, reminded me of her betrayal. I couldn't sweep this under the rug. I had to be honest with myself and with her. I needed to make a choice that aligned with my newfound sense of self. So I laid it all out. "Emily, I'm not sure I can go back to how things were. You shattered my trust, and I don't think a few apologies will fix it. I've been building something for myself, something that makes me happy. I need to figure out what I want, and I can't do that if you're trying to pull me back into the mess we had." Her face fell, and for a moment I felt a pang of sorrow for her. But I reminded myself that the emotional roller coaster I was on was a result of her choices, not mine. I was ready to take control of my life, regardless of the pain that brought me to this point. The night ended with an uneasy silence. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to move forward. My focus was clear now: build my platform and keep rising. I was done being the victim in this story. Instead, I was ready to write my own narrative. As I continued to build my platform, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. I was diving headfirst into a world that was both exhilarating and daunting. Each video I posted garnered more attention, and with that attention came a community of followers who appreciated my honesty. I was no longer just Jake. I was becoming a brand, and I thrived on the connection I was forging with my audience. But Emily's presence in my life was still a haunting reminder of my past. She would often linger around while I worked, watching me edit or read comments in disbelief. I could sense her frustration growing each day. It was as if she was struggling to accept that I was no longer the man she could manipulate. I had evolved into someone stronger, someone who wouldn't let her run the show anymore. One afternoon, while I was responding to comments, I received a message that sent a shiver down my spine. It was from a follower named Sarah, who had been engaging with my content for weeks. Her message was simple but alarming. "Hey, I saw Emily at an event last night with that YouTuber. They looked pretty cozy." My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My heart raced and I felt my anger bubbling back to the surface. I confronted Emily that evening as a storm brewed outside. The rain pounded against the windows, mirroring the turmoil in my mind. "I got a message from a follower today. Sarah saw you with that YouTuber. What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of fury. Emily's reaction was immediate. She turned pale and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "Jake, that's not what it looks like. I was just trying to network for my content," she exclaimed, her voice rising defensively. "You know how important social media is for us." "Us?" I scoffed. "This isn't about us. You've been betraying me while I've been trying to build something real. I'm done with your lies, Emily." The intensity of the moment felt electric. I was standing my ground, refusing to allow her manipulation to take hold. The argument escalated. She cried and tried to justify her actions, attempting to portray herself as a victim of my success. "You're acting like you're superior just because you have followers now. I didn't cheat on you because you weren't good enough. I did it because I felt trapped." Her words stung, but I wasn't about to let her twist the narrative. "Trapped?" I seethed. "You were the one who chose to step out of our marriage. You could have talked to me, Emily. Instead, you decided to throw everything away for a cheap thrill." My voice echoed in the small space, the tension palpable. The confrontation reached a fever pitch, and I could sense we were at a crucial turning point. I had to make a decision. Was I going to allow her to continue to play the victim, or was I ready to fully distance myself from this toxic situation? In that moment, I realized that staying in this relationship was holding me back. I had finally begun to rediscover my confidence, my voice, and my passion. I didn't need to be weighed down by her regrets or her excuses. "Emily, I think it's time we take a break. I need space to focus on my growth. This isn't working for me anymore." Her expression shifted from anger to shock. "You can't be serious, Jake. We've built a life together," she cried, her facade cracking. "Yeah, a life based on lies and betrayal," I shot back, my voice firm. "I need to prioritize myself right now." With that, I walked out of the apartment, leaving her there to confront the reality of her choices. I headed to a nearby coffee shop, needing to breathe and gather my thoughts. I couldn't deny the rush of liberation that coursed through me. I was finally making the hard choices that would allow me to step into my own light. As I sat in the corner with a cup of coffee, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. The freedom from my past mistakes and the burden of Emily's betrayal was almost intoxicating. I realized that I needed to keep pushing forward. The world was wide open, and I had so much to offer. My audience was growing, and people were responding to my authenticity. I started drafting ideas for future videos, focusing on themes of self-discovery and empowerment. I wanted to share my journey with others who might be going through similar situations. As I filmed my next segment, I felt more present than ever. I could finally share my story, a story of betrayal and redemption, of finding oneself amidst the chaos. However, the impact of Emily's actions was still lingering in the background. I knew I had to be vigilant. She was not going to take my decision lightly. I could sense that she would do whatever it took to regain control over the narrative, but I was ready for anything she threw my way. I wasn't just going to survive this, I was going to thrive. Little did I know how much more turmoil awaited me as I navigated this uncharted territory of my life. The emotional roller coaster was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally steering my own ship. I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that I was no longer defined by Emily or her choices. With my newfound sense of freedom and purpose, I dove deeper into my content creation. Each day felt like a fresh start as I built a community that resonated with my story. Followers began to share their own experiences with betrayal and heartbreak, and I found strength in our shared narratives. It was empowering to know that I wasn't alone. I was part of something bigger. While I focused on my personal growth, Emily remained a looming presence in my life. She was relentless. I received messages from mutual friends who were concerned about her mental state. They claimed she was in a downward spiral, struggling to cope with my rejection. I felt a pang of guilt at times, but I quickly reminded myself that I couldn't sacrifice my well-being for her. I had given her countless chances, and she had squandered them all. One evening, while editing a video that spoke about healing and self-love, I received a notification that made my heart race. It was a notification from Emily's social media account. In her latest post, she had tagged that famous YouTuber Ryan. They were together at some glitzy event, posing together, smiles plastered across their faces. The caption read, "Living my best life with someone who gets me." I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. I had anticipated her move. She was trying to prove a point, but it didn't hurt me the way I expected. Instead, I felt a spark of determination ignite inside me. If she wanted to play this game, I would not only play but raise the stakes. I decided to respond with a video titled "Moving On: Finding Your Best Life After Betrayal." In it, I shared my journey of healing, the lessons I had learned, and how I was focusing on myself without being defined by others' actions. I knew my followers would appreciate the authentic take, and I was ready to let go of the last remnants of hurt that Emily had caused. The video quickly gained traction, spurring conversations about self-worth and empowerment. People resonated with my authenticity, and my follower count soared even higher. I felt like I had tapped into something profound, a movement of sorts. I was no longer just a guy sharing his story. I was becoming a voice for those who felt voiceless. But Emily wasn't done. A few days later, she reached out to me with an unexpected message. "Can we talk? I need to explain why I acted the way I did." My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop, knowing fully that I was walking into a potential emotional minefield. When I arrived, Emily was already seated, her demeanor a strange mix of confidence and vulnerability. I took a deep breath as I approached her table. "What's this about?" She fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since you left. I know I hurt you and I'm truly sorry. I just felt so lost and sought validation from other people. It was a mistake and I wanted to take accountability for my actions," she said, her voice shaking. Part of me wanted to believe her, to see genuine remorse in her eyes, but the other part, the part that had been hurt by her lies, remained skeptical. "Emily, it's great that you're reflecting, but that doesn't change what you did. You chose to betray my trust instead of communicating with me." "I know," she replied, her voice a whisper now, "but I miss you, Jake. I thought I needed excitement, but all I've found is emptiness. I want to fix this." Her words buried themselves in my chest, and for a fleeting moment I felt the familiar tug of longing, but I quickly pushed it aside. "You can't just expect me to forget everything because you feel bad now. Trust doesn't just come back overnight." She nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm asking for a chance to show you I can change." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "Emily, I've put in so much work to build myself back up after what you did. I can't just go back to how things were. You need to really work on yourself first." She sighed, defeated. I could see the realization dawning on her that this wasn't going to be as easy as she had hoped. "I get it. I'll give you space, but I hope you'll consider it. I still care about you." As I left the coffee shop, I felt a strange mixture of emotions swirling in my chest. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't ready to forgive either. I had to remind myself that my journey was just beginning, and I needed to stay focused on what I had built for myself. The following weeks were a blur of excitement and nervous anticipation. My channel continued to grow, and I was planning a live stream event to engage with my followers in real time. The idea thrilled me. It was an opportunity to share my story directly and connect with people who had faced similar hardships. As the live stream date approached, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was my moment to shine, to show the world that I had risen from the ashes of my pain. But Emily's shadow lingered in the back of my mind. I wondered if she would try to intervene, to pull me back into her web of chaos. The night of the live stream arrived and I was ready. I sat in front of my camera, heart racing, and hit record. The chat lit up with messages of support, and as I began sharing my story, I felt the weight of my past lift off my shoulders. I was finally stepping into the light, and there was no turning back now. But little did I know, Emily wasn't finished with her schemes. As I shared my journey with the world, she was plotting her next move, one that would shake the very foundation of the life I had fought so hard to rebuild. The live stream was a resounding success. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I engaged with my audience, each comment and reaction fueling my passion. I shared my journey through betrayal, the pain I had experienced, and my determination to rise stronger than before. The messages poured in, filled with encouragement and appreciation. It was exhilarating to connect with others who had faced similar struggles. I felt like I was finally living my truth. As the night wore on, I glanced at the follower count on my screen, and my heart raced. I had surpassed the milestone of 50,000 followers, a number I had hardly dared to dream of just months prior. I was no longer just building a platform. I was creating a movement, one that celebrated resilience, authenticity, and the power of healing. But beneath the surface of this excitement, a nagging thought lingered in the back of my mind. Emily was still out there, and I knew I hadn't seen the last of her. I tried to brush it off, focusing instead on the positive energy surrounding me. I was finally reclaiming my narrative, but little did I know, a storm was brewing. The next day, I woke up to a flurry of notifications. My heart sank as I opened social media. Emily had gone live herself, an unexpected and premeditated move. She had decided to take to her platform to give her side of the story. I watched, stunned, as she painted herself as the misunderstood victim, claiming that I had abandoned her during a difficult time and had been too caught up in my own success to notice her struggles. My initial shock quickly morphed into anger. In the live stream, she revealed intimate details about our relationship, presenting them in a way that distorted the reality of what had happened. She accused me of being emotionally unavailable and suggested that my new followers had changed me, turning me into someone who no longer cared about her. I felt the heat rise in my chest as her words dripped with manipulation. This wasn't just her attempting to reconcile. This was her attempt to paint me as the villain in her narrative. I couldn't sit back and let her distort the truth any longer. I felt a fire ignite within me, and I knew I had to respond, not with anger or retaliation, but with the same authenticity that had propelled my platform to success. I decided to go live myself, but this time I wasn't just sharing my story, I was confronting hers. As I set up my camera, I felt a mix of urgency and determination. I took a deep breath and hit record. "Hey everyone," I began, my heart pounding. "I want to address something that's been happening lately and share my truth." I felt a wave of support wash over me as comments flooded in, urging me to speak up. I explained my side of the story, detailing the pain I had experienced from her betrayal and the betrayal of trust that had led to our unraveling. I shared how I had spent months rebuilding myself and finding my voice. I emphasized that while I understood her struggles, my healing journey was not a reflection of her worth. It was about reclaiming my life. As I spoke, I could feel the weight of Emily's narrative beginning to crumble. I articulated my emotions honestly, responding to her claims with clarity. "I didn't abandon you," I said firmly. "You chose to betray our relationship instead of reaching out to me for help. I wanted to be there for you, but you pushed me away." The comments lit up with support. People resonated with my honesty and authenticity, and I could feel my community rallying around me. I was no longer just defending myself. I was reclaiming my narrative and showing others that it was okay to stand strong in the face of adversity. After the live stream ended, a wave of relief washed over me. I had found my voice and my power, and in that moment I knew I had made the right choice. I felt liberated, unburdened by the lies Emily had spun. But the confrontation was not over. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. Over the next week, there was a palpable tension in the air. Emily's reaction to my live stream was unpredictable. I braced myself for the fallout, knowing she would come back swinging, but I was no longer afraid. I had cultivated a community that believed in me, and together we were stronger. On a particularly stormy night, I received a text from Emily. "We need to talk," it read, followed by an address I recognized as a nearby park. Despite the chaos in my heart, I agreed to meet her, knowing that we needed to resolve this for good. When I arrived, the rain had subsided, leaving behind a misty haze. Emily was already there, her expression a mix of determination and vulnerability. "Jake, I'm sorry for how I've handled things," she started, her voice shaky. "I was just scared of losing you and wanted to protect myself, but I realized that I've only hurt you more." I studied her for a moment, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "I appreciate the apology, Emily, but that doesn't change what happened. You can't just expect me to forgive and forget everything. Trust is built over time, and you shattered that." "I know," she replied, her voice thick with emotion, "but I want to do better. I'm working on myself. I've been seeing a therapist, and I'm actually trying to understand why I acted the way I did." Her admission surprised me, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she was genuinely trying to change. "That's a step in the right direction, but you have to understand that I can't just jump back into things like nothing happened. I need time, and I need to focus on myself. Please, just give me a chance to show you. I miss us," she pleaded, her eyes pleading. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to believe her, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh. "I'll think about it," I said finally, deciding to keep the door slightly ajar without fully committing. I had to protect my heart, but I also didn't want to close myself off completely. As I walked away from that park, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I had come so far on my journey, but there were still shadows of the past that needed to be addressed. I knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came my way. Each day was a new opportunity to grow, to heal, and to embrace the life I was building for myself, one that was no longer defined by betrayal, but rather shaped by resilience and the strength of my newfound community. But just as I started to feel secure in my decisions, Emily's next move would push me into uncharted territory, one that would truly test my resolve and the strength of my platform. In the weeks that followed my conversation with Emily, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. I continued to focus on my content creation, pouring my heart into videos that resonated with my audience. I explored deeper themes of healing, love, and resilience, and my community responded with tremendous support. My follower count continued to climb, and I was able to foster real connections that fueled my passion for creating genuine content. However, lurking in the back of my mind was the lingering question of Emily's intentions. She had claimed to be working on herself, but trust is a fragile thing. It can take years to build and moments to destroy. I knew I had to be vigilant, but I also wanted to remain open to the possibility of forgiveness. Then, one fateful evening, I received a message that shattered the calm I had been cultivating. It was from Ryan, the YouTuber Emily had been linked with. His message was simple yet unsettling. "Hey Jake, I think we need to talk. Can we meet up?" My stomach churned at the thought. What could he possibly want to discuss? My mind raced, but I knew I had to face this head-on. We agreed to meet at a local diner, and as I sat there waiting, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Part of me wanted to confront him, to demand answers and assert my place in this narrative. But as he walked in, I was struck by his demeanor, confident but not cocky, his expression serious but not hostile. "Jake," he said, extending his hand. I shook it, my nerves rattling beneath the surface. "Thanks for meeting up. I know this is awkward, but I wanted to clear the air." I gestured for him to sit, my curiosity piqued. "What's going on?" I asked, unable to mask the tension in my voice. "Look, I want you to know that I never intended for things to get complicated between Emily and me. It started as a project collaboration, and I didn't realize she was in a committed relationship. She didn't tell me about you until it was too late, and by then, I was already wrapped up in the drama. His honesty caught me off guard. "So, you're saying you didn't know she was married?" "Not until she introduced me to her friends at an event. By that time, I'd already started to develop feelings for her, but I had no idea she had a husband who she had betrayed." I leaned back in my chair, processing his words. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I want to be transparent about what happened. I don't want you to think I'm some kind of villain in this story. I've been getting messages from followers who are confused, and I wanted to set the record straight. I don't want to hurt you or her further." A mixture of emotions coursed through me: anger, confusion, but most of all, relief. "So you're not pursuing her anymore?" "No." I realized that what we had was built on a shaky foundation. I don't want to be involved in a situation that's already so complicated. As he spoke, I sensed that he genuinely wanted to clear the air. "You're right. It's complicated, and I appreciate you coming forward. I just wish she had been upfront with both of us." "I do too. I'm sorry for what you've gone through. I really am." We parted ways after that conversation, and I felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. I had confronted the issue head-on and emerged with clarity, but I still had to address my own feelings about Emily and our relationship. That night I decided to call her. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm yet calm. I could sense her nervousness through the phone. "Can we meet tomorrow?" She agreed, and as I hung up, a mix of anticipation and dread settled in. I knew this conversation would be pivotal, and I had to approach it with honesty and clarity. The next day, we met in the same park where we had previously discussed our relationship. I arrived to see her sitting on a bench, fidgeting with her hands. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm glad you called." "Emily, I spoke with Ryan," I said, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened, and I could see the guilt wash over her. "He told me everything." She began, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I need you to listen. I appreciate your apologies, and I see that you're trying to change, but I can't go back to how things were. I can't let you pull me into your chaos again." "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's best if we part ways for good. I need to focus on myself and my journey. I've built something genuine, and I can't let your unresolved issues derail me again." A tear slipped down her cheek, and for a moment I felt a pang of regret. "I understand if you need to do this, but I wish things had been different," she said, her voice breaking. "I do too," I replied softly. "But we both need to heal, and that means letting go." As we parted ways that day, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I had made the right choice for myself. And while it hurt to say goodbye, I knew it was necessary for my growth. In the months that followed, I continued to pour my energy into my platform, embracing the community that had formed around my journey. I shared new content about self-discovery and resilience, and my followers continued to grow, drawn to the authenticity of my story. I learned to embrace the lessons that came with heartbreak, realizing that every experience, no matter how painful, shaped who I was becoming. I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to share not just my triumphs but my struggles as well. The pain of betrayal no longer defined me. Instead, it became a chapter in my story, a chapter that had led me to find my voice and reclaim my power. I had emerged from the darkness, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever realized. Looking back, I could see how far I had come. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and in doing so, I had built not only a platform but a community that celebrated resilience and growth. And as I continued to create content that resonated with others, I knew that I was finally living the life I was meant to lead, one defined by authenticity, strength, and the unwavering belief in my own worth.